Good evening and welcome to day 13 of the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. I'm so happy to be back with you. We have been away for several days due to business and personal emergencies. We missed several days, but we will air those as soon as I can get some time to read our selections for those days. We are back with day 13, and today is Erotica Day. And I am glad that you are with us. We are later than we planned to be. And if you, wherever you are in the world and you're able to watch us, we want to say thank you for joining us again here at the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. We want to remind you that we are here at what we affectionately call TIG Brad, and that is where we are giving voice to words written by Black people all around the world. And we want to let you know where our writers are, where our selections are coming from. And today we have our selection, and we're going to get right to it. But before we do that, we want to remind you to subscribe to our website and to let you know that you're able to follow us online at Black Read Aloud. And we partner with Fresh Book Festival in Literacy. And so we want you to get your tickets as well for Fresh Book Festival coming up next week, February 22nd through the 24th in Daytona Beach. You can get your tickets online at freshbookfestivals.net. It is part film festival and part book festival, and you will enjoy it all. Well, as I said, today is um, day 13 erotica. And so we always try to walk a little fine line with what we do on this day because we want the reading to be enjoyable and be, somewhat appealing to everybody. And so today our selection is Who's Loving You? Love Stories by Women of Color, edited by Sareeta Domingo of the United Kingdom. And so we, as always, are going to put up our cover. Let me remember to take down our banners here. And here's our cover for today. Who's Loving You? Love Stories by Women of Color. And our selection out of this today is coming to us from Brief Encounters by Sarah Collins. And so we're going to get right to our read today. This is Brief Encounters by Sarah Collins from Who's Loving You? Love Stories by Women of Color. She had decided to try to get some work done, which meant waking up early, packing her bag with laptop, notebook, and pens, taking the tube to King's Cross, then a train, any train, going anywhere. It didn't matter where, so as long as she could go there and back in 4 hours. If she didn't follow this routine every morning, she wouldn't know what to do with herself. She needed the chatter around her, the feeling of movement. She was terrified of stillness, of being unable to work. Yet that morning, even after she clicked along the platform in her distressing new boots, found herself a seat with a table, and flicked her notebook open, she couldn't write. Outside, the light made the city seem warm and beautiful, even where it was not. And she liked watching the way the world flees from a departing train. So she turned to gaze out the window, feeling herself slip into a kind of restlessness, a feeling that did not come easily to her these days, which was why, when she felt the shadow of someone moving to her space, she looked up, prepared to be annoyed. But it was him. Hey, oat milk, he said. Oh my God, she laughed. It had been so long since she had laughed for any reason. She found herself wanting to do it again. He smiled, although he was looking at her warily. Seat taken? The first thing she noticed was how the light was playing its tricks all over him too, making him seem warm, beautiful. She could see he wanted to say something more to her, but he did not speak. He was probably thinking she was a nutter given what had happened at the station. She watched him settling into his seat, so tall that he had to pull his legs in. The woman across the aisle looked up from her Leon takeaway breakfast, gave him an admiring glance. Buildings scrolled past them. Beneath her, she felt the small vibrations of the train. You must have thought I was the right beat, she said. He smiled. Either that or you're having a bee of a morning. Even so, I stole your coffee. I'm sorry. It's all good, honestly, he said. It sounded like, honestly, a little tinge of Jamaica that reminded her of her dad, whom death had frozen forever as a bus driver coming off his shift and adding fried bacon and scotch bonnet peppers to his Sunday rice and peas while she rested her head on the table beside him, and his chocolatey baritone shivered through her bones. My body lies over the ocean, my body lies over the sea. Beginning with her dad, she had learned that death is a bit like celebrity and that it fixes you at the age you are when it happens to you. So, were you, pardon? Having a bee of a morning. Oh, all mornings are, aren't they? Especially Mondays, she said. They laughed together. If she were a different, unbroken woman, this would be considered flirting. This pit of the stomach feeling, the body connected itself to something electric. A switch flipping deep inside. Lust, attraction. Call it what you want. She was surprised she could feel it, that she still wanted to feel it. Across the table, he gave her a look. He had that deep seam of cockiness that goes right down to the backbone of good looking men, swooping his locks off his forehead with long fingers, massive hands, magnificent penis, as she and Lucy used to whisper drunkenly to each other during their days, ready potential one night stands in clubs. He reminded her of the photograph of Fanon she pinned on the corkboard above her desk at uni. Intense, watchful, a beautiful dreadlock Fanon. Anyway, he said, gesturing towards her notebook, looks like you're hard at work. He was economical in his movements as if realizing he took up too much space already. I'll leave you to it. She felt the feeling of flirtation drifting away and discovered that she wanted to hold on to it. What harm could it do? To smile, to flirt, to forget temporarily. I wish, she said. I mean, I wish I could work. I'm not getting much done lately. I'm about to miss a deadline. Whoosh! She did a Douglas Adams deadline flying over my head gesture, instantly regretting how much of a nerd this would make her seem. But he only gave her that ear to ear grin again. Ah, a writer. For 2 hours every morning on the train. Outside of that, absolutely no writing gets done. Good plan, he said, chuckling. I'm sure it's more than most writers manage. The train wobbled and caught itself as they passed through a station where trees huddled together like smokers outside an office building. Not a plan as such, just the result of being unable to get anything done at home. I see, he nodded. Kids? What? As soon as she said it, she knew that she had been too loud, too harsh. He looked at her strangely. You said you couldn't work at home. Oh, her heart knocked against her ribs. Yes, I have a daughter, Saskia. Sassy, we call her. And sassy she is. She's 4, a right little handful. The train lurched, stopped. She was already on the move, straining forward, trying to make out the name of the station, trying to slow her breath. For a moment, she had felt the pleasure of conversation, of being out in the world, more importantly, of being herself. But she had forgotten that the trouble with going out into the world was other people. She looked over again at the stranger. Said, had he said his name was Seth? Who was still looking at her thoughtfully, as if he wanted to say something. This is me, she said, pointing, panicking. The second line scrambling out of her as she scrambled for her things. She had no idea where they were. Okay, he said, bemused, rubbing his neck. Nice chatting to you. Making herself get out of bed every morning, pottering around the kitchen, washing up and clearing the counters, leaving Jacob asleep, walking down King Street, through the turnstiles down to the tube. She was strict with herself about following this routine, about getting her work done. They could live for another 2 years on the dregs of her advance from her last novel, but she needed to keep publishing. She had never considered herself a selfish person. She had been raised by Jamaican parents, after all. If there had been one philosophy guiding her life up to that point, it had do not disappoint other people. So, this feeling, wanting something solely for herself and solely for pleasure, was new. If she'd been honest with herself, she would have admitted that she wanted one thing in particular to run into him again. Although she didn't admit this, she did wait for the 8:32 King's Cross to Cambridge every day for the following 2 weeks, which is why it wasn't much of a coincidence when she did. And let me go ahead and put up our, our title. Now that she'd already met him, there was no missing him. He drew the eye. Tall, lean, restless. Hovering near the Cafe Nero kiosk, takeaway cup in one hand, in the other cup, in the other a copy of Between the World and Me. Hey, he said. Hey, she said. Seb, right? Right, and you're Evie. Evie figured I'd say hi. Oh, she said, hi. A moment of silence. He gave her a serious look as if he was afraid to scare her off again. She ran her head over her scalp, suddenly self conscious. She'd shaved her head on a whim. No more barber shop every 2 weeks to shape up her afro. No more time or energy wasted breaking and burying combs in her 4C hair. Setting the clippers aside, she had felt so light, which was how she felt standing there in front of him, as if the raw wind that had found its way inside her somehow could just sweep her up and whisk her away someone better, or at least surprise him. Nice fade, he said, like he meant it, even though there was very little fade, mostly scat. Seat mates again? She could tell even then that she was sliding out of a groove, loosening like a pulled thread. Sure, she said, hoping she sounded more casual than she felt. The 8:32? She sat slanted towards him. He kept his eyes on her, his long legs filling the space between their seats. She could feel the warmth of them if she moved, even an inch. She would brush against him. Therefore, she was careful to hold still. Sorry about that. The overhead lights was on. One thing she liked about the train was that it was a world of its own, no room for Jacob or Sassy. It was a kind of limbo, moving between places and identities, having to be neither mother nor wife. And now she sat across from Seb, savoring the freedom of this mild flirtation, guilt and gladness going hand in hand. He owned a residential construction company, had recently moved out of Cambridge, but went back every Monday lunchtime to review an ongoing project. He showed her the bag in which he carried work clothes because sometimes he fancied getting his hands dirty while he was there. They discovered they had both done English degrees, both had old school Jamaican parents. His were still pottering around Shepherd's Bush, where they had moved straight from Montego Bay. When he was 10, hers had both died before she turned 15. The appeal of strangers is that they allow you to edit yourself into something interesting. Her mom and dad, she told him, had eaten nothing but hard dough bread and butter for breakfast, lunch, and dinner one term to pay her private school fees. Yet they would have sworn that hugging was something you only did once a week in church. And as for having fun, when chicken marries, denier, hot denier. I'm hoping some of my Jamaican friends will correct me with that phrase. He laughed. It had been his mom's favorite saying, too. Talking to him pushed the usual noise out of her head, like time traveling to a calmer, better version of herself. The space between them was thick with all the things they prevented themselves from saying. It grew warm in the carriage, so he rolled his sleeves up, giving her a glimpse of a tattoo marching down his forearm. I am not your Negro. You a Baldwin fan? She asked, thinking about how often she watched the documentary. Everyone should be, he said. In a just world, the man would be on the curriculum at least as much as Shakespeare. I couldn't agree more. But also, he laughed. It creased his whole face in a way she found delightful. I'm just not anybody's Negro. She felt not only attractive, but attractive. She sensed danger even then, the risk of addiction. The train pulled into Cambridge and he asked if she liked to see his project, a Victorian conversion. Why not, she thought. Suddenly, the thought of staying on the train, of keeping going, felt exhausting. Cambridge had been his destination. It might as well be hers. For a moment, she said nothing. And then she said yes. They waited together at the taxi rank. He opened up his umbrella to shield them when it started to rain. Later, she let herself into her quiet house, stopping to skim her finger along the silver frame photo of Sassy that was hung on the wall near the front door. Jacob would have taken it because he had taken all of their photos. In it, Sassy was marching upstairs, looking back at him over her shoulder, her hair in four little plaits. Jacob must have done those too. They were slightly askew. She was holding the Gruffalo in one hand and her blue stuffed bunny in the other. Gruffalo and Bunny, her favorite bedtime combo. An image came to Evie as she pressed her forefinger against the glass of the photo frame. Jacob putting his new camera together, spreading its spidery parts out across their bed while she kept the baby out of the way. Sassy's first birthday, but the camera had been a gift to himself, the same model he'd used as a student. He wanted good photos, he said when she had laughed at how much time he spent hunting down one secondhand. He wanted to document his daughter's life for her, carefully, artfully, to show her when she was all grown up. Look at Sassy. Look at her baby girl. The tiny, fearless pistons of her knees. Eva could almost hear her. Up, Dada, up. She tore herself away from the photo. There was no sign of Jacob, but there was vomit in the hallway, so he was around somewhere. She flicked the kettle on, rooting around in the cupboard for bicarbonate of soda, taking her time with her cup of tea, cleaning up before heading upstairs. She found him fully clothed in the bath, shower running. She flicked it off, slipped her arms around him, tried to stop herself comparing his body to the one she was hankering after. All right, honey, she said, lifting. You're all right. He raised his arms. She peeled off his sopping shirt. She could see there was no point in asking if he left the house or gotten any work done today. So sorry, Edie, Jacob said. Sorry. I know, Jacob. I know. But anger throttled her. She had to face away from him for a minute, take a deep breath. Their first Christmas together, Jacob gave her a copy of Sontag's journal. He knew his wife, so he knew Sontag was worth more than rubies. And forever afterwards, she would always have to remember that line from it and quoting it in her head, the one that goes, marriage is based on the principle of inertia. Especially years later during her phase of old green velour tracksuit about the house and failing daily to comb her hair when Jacob had joked with her about her own inertia. You better shape up, Evie. I need my woman ship shape. She'd known he didn't mean it. The joke was that he would never leave her. He loved her too much, plus he was a loyal, decent man. Plus ça change, he liked to say whenever something struck him as foolish in a kind of timeless way. The very thing she thought she liked about being married was the fact that nothing was going to change, that it would be a way of stopping the clock on a moment of happiness. But they had changed. First, they had multiplied, then divided, and now she had split in two, like a cancer cell or the nucleus of an atom. One half of her here putting her husband to bed, the other half laughing with a stranger on a train. This has been our selection, part of our selection for today. Well, it's been our selection for today. And our title is Who's Loving You? Love Stories by Women of Color. And our particular selection out of this anthology, which is a collection of stories, is Brief Encounters. And we want to put our cover back up as we like to do so that you can see it. It's Who's Loving You? Love Stories by Women of Color, edited by Sareeta Domingo of the United Kingdom. And we want to remind you what we are doing here at the Great Black Read Aloud Day, and that is we are giving voice to words written by Black people all around the world, written by Black people from all around the world, and just letting you know the vast diversity of literature written by Black authors from many different countries. And so this year we're making an effort to tell you from whence those authors hail. We want to remind you that we are reading every day in as much as it is within our power to do so. And today is day 13, it is erotica, and tomorrow is February 14th. It is Love and Romance Day. And we hope that you will join us tomorrow as we are helping to celebrate Valentine's Day. We always do love and romance on the 14th during the Great Black Read Aloud Day and the International Great Black Read Aloud Day, what we call TIGBRAT. And so we are super excited about tomorrow and hope you will join us for another read aloud here on the International Great Black Read Aloud Day 2024 edition. So we are excited and we will see you tomorrow. Have a good night. And please look forward to us dropping some readings here in the next few days to fill in the gaps where we had. And we do apologize for not being available. However, life happens sometimes and we're learning to roll with it. Okay. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.